Yes, you're still watching Citizen Extra, the Tuesday edition with me, Fred Indimuli. We continue looking at the Jubilee Manifesto launch. Yesterday, they spoke about quite a number of issues, a 76-page document. I'm sure it must be available on different platforms. You can go read it for yourselves. We'd like to examine this issue, one of the promises made in as far as tourism is concerned. For example, the Jubilee administration promised to increase the number of foreign tourists from 1.1 million to 2 million by 2020, and the number of domestic overnight visitors from 1.4 million to 6 million. And they say these numbers could be much higher with the other transformative actions that they have taken. Would like to get an opinion from one of the stakeholders in this industry, all the way in Mombasa. Sami Kwaya, Executive Officer, Hotel Keepers Association in Mombasa, now joins us. Bwana Sami Kwaya, very good morning, if you can hear me clearly. Some of these promises made by Jubilee in the manifesto launch yesterday, do you think this is something that can be done? How have you welcomed this, the promise of 1.1 million to increase the number of foreign tourists from 1.1 million to 2 million by 2020, and the number of domestic overnight visitors from 1.4 million to 6 million? Do you think this is realistic? Is it practicable?
Thank you, Fred. This is very realistic, actually. If you look at what other governments have been able to do within a very short time, actually such numbers are very realizable. Raising to 2 million, if you look at what Tanzania is doing, South Africa and our competitors, actually the numbers are actually realizable. The domestic market in Kenya has actually been growing. Actually, a figure of 6 million is actually on the lower scale. Considering what the potential of Kenya domestic market being. The only concern we are having, Fred, is that really as tourism stakeholders, we're very worried about the nature and the form that these manifestos are taking. If you compare what has actually happened in the country within the last 4 years, if we want to take stock of what the Jubilee government has been able to do, particularly for the tourism industry, you get a feeling, and when you talk to stakeholders in the region, you get a feeling probably this is being done for the masses or for the cameras, because the coast region itself has had a command of 65% of the bed occupancies in this country. But then what has happened only in this 1 year in terms of occupancy levels and tourism business that we've been able to experience leaves a lot to be desired in terms of really what the commitment will be of whatever government comes into power within the next 5 years. If you look, for example, the investment that is being done in terms of road expansion, expansion of the airports, expanding of the port terminal to hard cruise tourism, all these are very good hardware investments that are being done. But then we lack in seeing the software aspects, and that is where tourism really lies. So the numbers can actually be realized, it is possible, but then we lack, we are missing to see people talking about the software issues that are meant to connect the investments that we're experiencing or seeing around in the hardware. Yes, Sami Kwaya, yes, as you said, they've promised before. The problem is usually when it comes to implementation. What, for example, do you believe the government, the Jubilee administration, if at all it gets the mandate, what do you believe they should do to actually achieve this promise that they've made? When I inquire, yes, the question is, what do you think the Jubilee administration needs to do, and as far as ensuring that they deliver on this promise that they've made? We understand we've lost the connection there. We're speaking to Sami Kwaya, Executive Officer, Hotel Keepers Association, all the way in Mombasa, seeking to understand what their take is on the promise by Jubilee on its manifesto launch yesterday. The promise is to increase the number of foreign tourists from 1.1 million to 2 million by 2020, and the number of domestic overnight visitors from 1.4 million to 6 million. And as Sami Kwaya said, it is actually a realistic promise.
In studio, we do have Michael Agwanda, analyst, Brian Mutie, and Johnson Givaka. They will be our analysts for the next discussion. Of course, we continue talking about the Jubilee Manifesto. After a while, we'll switch the discussion and discuss about the political climate. We do understand there was quite some chaos in Siaya County in the past few days. Supporters of an ODM party candidate clashed with the supporters of an independent candidate. Remember, all these candidates are supporting NASA, and therefore the issue of the independent candidate still making for very major discussions. Let's now go back on the campaign trail. We do understand President Uhuru Kenyatta, after that one-day break where he was launching the party manifesto yesterday, he's gone back on the campaign trail. Today he will be in Tharaka Nithi, and that's where our reporter Jackie Maribe is currently stationed. Jackie, a very good morning. Give us the update from Tharaka Nithi. Jackie, if you can hear me, where exactly are you coming to us from, and what is the situation? Is the president there as we speak? For the last time, Jackie, if you can hear me, how is the situation in Tharaka Nithi as far as the Jubilee campaigns is concerned? Okay, we're having a problem with the connection between Nairobi and Tharaka Nithi. We'll be joining Jackie Maribe in a short while for an update of the Jubilee Party campaigns. We do understand the president and his deputy will be in Tharaka Nithi today. This is after the one-day break that they took yesterday, ostensibly to launch the Jubilee Party manifesto. Later today, we do understand NASA is also launching its own promise. The NASA manifesto will be launched beginning at 5 p.m. this evening. So let's continue with the discussion here in studio. Now, gentlemen, you've had the discussion we've had before, the discussion we continue to have. It has to do with the promises being made by either Jubilee and NASA. Yesterday, the Jubilee Party made promises. Some of them, people argue they're not realistic. Some of them, as we've even seen there, some require the executive officer, Hotel Keepers Association in Mombasa, saying that yes, the promise is realistic, but the implementation is a problem. Do you think that the Jubilee manifesto as launched yesterday was generally realistic? Let's start with you, Brian.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Fred. I think the Jubilee's manifesto yesterday, I think to me it was a continuation of where they left since 2013. I think to me it was designed in a way that it really borrowed heavily from 2013, save for some few issues here and there, because when you look at the issues of job creation for the youth, that has been there before. When you look at the issues of security, that's obvious that security has to be provided. Apart from deviating from the issue of enrollment in terms of primary schools and the issues of secondary, I think that's where you could pick a clear demarcation from the norm, where they actually came up with an idea of actually free secondary education, especially for the day scholars and all that. So that was the most outstanding out of what they told us yesterday. But essentially, you could say that it was a sort of ballooning the manifesto that they had in 2013 and actually expanding it further. And seems that they were also, bringing issues of how it's going to be implemented. I think to me they brought a lot of software issues on top of the hardware issues that they were expressing in terms of implementation. And therefore, to me, I think as much as it is over-ambitious one, I think it's something that's doable when you look at it.
Described as over-ambitious?
Somehow it's over-ambitious, because when you look at 1.3 job creation for youth annually, I think, Fred, that is a little bit on the higher, height. But again, I do believe that the government does not necessarily have to create the jobs directly, but they can only offer that kind of conducive environment where job creation is actually able to be
why
done.
Promise something that you clearly cannot deliver on? Bwana Michael Agwanda, Bwana Mutie says that the promise for 1.3 million jobs is over-ambitious and probably unrealistic. Why would any politician, whether Jubilee or NASA, go out and promise something that clearly you're even sure delivering on this could be a bit risky?
Thank you, Fred. When you look at the manifesto yesterday, you are having brilliant ideas behind these items that Jubilee was bringing forth for the country and saying that we've done and we want to continue doing it for the next 5 years. And that basically was appealing to the electorate out there that we need your votes for us to continue being in the office. Well, when it comes to issues of promises, I can tell you that one of the things that is really short on the food for Jubilee is promising what they are not able to do. When we talk about issues of jobs, for example, and they've said they've been creating 800,000 jobs every single year. That is neither here nor there, because they're not giving us the statistics of which company employed 100,000 and another company that employed 10,000. Remember, these are logistical issues. These are statistical issues. I mean, you can quantify them and you can give evidence as to where, when, and how.
So you also find most of the promises are realistic?
They are quite unrealistic. I can tell you. They are doable, as my colleagues say, but quite unrealistic because they have not been able to achieve some of those very things that they're actually saying they will do in the next 5 years. Remember, when we look at Jubilee, we are looking at the scorecard and we're looking at what they are promising to be able to do. When we talk about issues of stadia, and somebody is telling you in a couple of months this will be done, in the next 6 months this will be done, we are looking at a situation of a government that may not be there or may be there. And so if they say in the next 6 months, if they've been able to do SGR, for example, in the next 4 years, in the last 4.5 years, why wouldn't one stadia be accomplished so that they can showcase as to we've done this, it is done, we're into the second and third ability.
Okay, allow me to interrupt you there because I do understand Jackie Maribe, all the way from Tharaka Nithi, is now ready to give us an update of the Jubilee Party campaigns there. Jackie, a very good afternoon. Kindly update us on the campaign situation in Tharaka Nithi.
That's right, we are coming to you live from Tharaka Nithi County. We apologize for that technical hitch with our audio earlier. But President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Deputy William Ruto are expected to arrive here any minute now. The indication we had been given was that they would be arriving at 10:30 this morning. We are, however, waiting for that. And once they get to Tharaka Nithi, a lot has been planned. It's not just about a campaign trail that they will be on today. The President and his Deputy will, however, be launching a number of government projects, including a number of roads that will be opened, access roads, the handing over of a title deed for Chakariga adjacent school. They will also, just be making sure that they are able to traverse the county by road the entire day as they continue to rally support for their re-election bid. However, it is not lost to anybody that there is also the question of local politics, and so this is something that we have been seeing in all the counties, 16 so far, that we have been following them on the campaign trail on. Now, there is the question of Jubilee ticket holders, as well as those who are under parties that are affiliated to Jubilee. So far, we have seen those under the Maendeleo Chapcha party that are here in Tharaka Nithi. All of them, however, saying that they would support President Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election bid at the top. But when it comes down to local leaders, they really should let their supporters decide on who exactly they would want. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Deputy William Ruto, Fred, yesterday, as you saw, launched their manifesto, and in that they were touting it as an issue-based manifesto. So we are waiting as well to see whether or not once they start their campaign blitz today, they will be taking a different direction in terms of the issues that they will be addressing, the residents and the electorate here in Tharaka Nithi County. However, there is, of course, the question of, their competitors. As we have been following them, Fred, and this has been the trend, they have been lashing out at them, arguing that their competitors have no agenda for the country. This coming at a day where NASA is supposed to be launching its manifesto as well, so we will be on the lookout for any reaction on that from here in Tharaka Nithi County. A lot of excited people here with us, Fred, and if Mike, my cameraman, can can just move over. Those who are waiting to, excuse me, sir, if you could more kindly, those who are waiting to, receive President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Deputy William Ruto here in Tharaka Nithi County. But for all the latest updates in terms of the projects that they will be launching, as well as the political speak that will be here, keep it here, Citizen TV, as we give you the latest developments.
Those are live pictures there from Tharaka Nithi County, where President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy will be leading the Jubilee Party Brigade in campaigning there. This is a day after they launched the Jubilee Party manifesto. Of course, Jackie Maribe will continue giving us updates from that particular end. Back in studio, we still continue discussing this issue. Of course, and this is one discussion that we'll move on to, managing the relationships between these different candidates from parties affiliated either to Jubilee or NASA, but are not under the NASA or Jubilee respectively, the independent candidates factor, and how the party leaders are struggling to handle those relationships. That is one discussion that we'll be having. But let's finalize with this issue of the party manifestos. Jubilee launched its party manifesto yesterday. NASA, we do expect they're going to launch their document later this afternoon. Let's bring in Bwana Johnson Kithaka, also an analyst on my panel this morning. Do you think these manifestos, and I'm not just talking about the Jubilee manifesto, I'm talking about generally, because our politicians seem to be suffering from the same affliction, probably over-promising and under-delivering. Do you think that probably we're just being treated to the same promises, just meant to excite the electorate?
Thank you, friend. I think in some instances, in fact, they are promising. And allow me to just comment about the tourist numbers. I get intrigued that we talk about just a growth of 500,000 more numbers. When we've really done what we've done, we've got more bed spaces, we've improved our infrastructure, we have the AGL now, the backpack tourist can actually hop into the train, 4 hours and a half is in Mombasa. He can alight somewhere in Voi and get to the parks. So really, when you look at some of those promises, they are actually not challenging. And I think sometimes when you look at it, they're not even inspiring. Because if you just want to grow 500,000 numbers in tourism, with all the infrastructure that has actually been put in place in terms of roads, we have got new bed spaces, we have one-star hotels happening. We even have people now who have converted their homes into residences where you can actually live there. So in some instances, friend, I think we are under-promising. And it's good for us when you have an objective, to have an objective that is not just measurable, but challenging.
But don't you think it's better when you give a realistic promise as opposed to making, remember, Jubilee is coming from a point where they promised a double-digit growth last time round. They've learned from that, and this time round they did not go close to that kind of promise. Don't you think it is actually right and proper for them to give realistic promises as opposed to just promising utopia?
I can understand their fear, invariably, friend, because of course, part of the reason I think they are getting a lot of flack from the other side is they promise things that they never delivered. But you know what? When you're in power, you have the sole responsibility of running the country. And I think sometimes it's good to be ambitious and it's good to be bold. But that said, friend, I think we need to interrogate. Why is it that the parties are launching the manifestos when they've actually been campaigning for the last 2 months? What is new? Are we saying that the manifestos are now supposed to inform their campaign platforms going forward? So that just tells you essentially what we are seeing is a packaging of the many promises, real and unrealistic, that have been promised over the last 2 months.
And Dr. Joseph Kithaka, I think you've just hit the nail on the head, and that's the discussion we're going to have. Is it an opportunity to actually craft a proper campaign question, a proper galvanizing question this time around as they're launching their manifestos? Has Jubilee managed to do that? Does NASA still have an opportunity to do that later today? Is this the perfect opportunity to actually form or create or come up with a proper galvanizing question for the campaigns 42 days to D-Day?
I don't think so.
Now we'll come back to that discussion, even in terms of messaging, and we do have a communications expert on the panel as well. But we do understand that we have managed to get connection once again with Bwana Sam Mikwaya, the Executive Officer, Hotel Keepers Association, Mombasa. But Sam, if you can hear me clearly, we discussed about the promises made by Jubilee. You said they're very realistic, 1.1 million, 2 million foreign tourists, 6 million domestic overnight visitors. You say it is realistic, but you said the challenge comes with on the implementation. What do you think the Jubilee administration should do for them to be able to deliver on that particular promise?
Actually, I mentioned earlier the numbers that have been quoted, 1.2 to 2 million tourists by the year 2020, increasing domestic tourists from 1.4 to 6 million. These are actually very tenable. These numbers that can actually be delivered. The only challenge that we're seeing in these kind of manifestos and how they are being fronted is kind of they're being done for the masses, really, because there is a lot of investment that is happening in the country, infrastructure-wise. We've seen the expansion of the airport. We've seen the SGR itself being launched. We've seen hoteliers, the private sector investors actually investing in the bed nights that we can see in the destination. But then what we're really lacking, and we would have loved to see coming through these manifestos, is actually the management of the software issues. Because tourism happens is a social engagement, so we are lacking software aspects of how actually to transform or deliver the numbers that you're talking about. It is very good and very easy to put figures out there, but what are we doing in terms of manpower training, development, the workforce, the society that is going to depend and drive tourism? These are the things that we are lacking, and it makes it very difficult to deliver. For example, we have a bigger vision for the country, the Vision 2030, which has actually put tourism as one of the economic pillars for the realization of the Vision 2030. But then the numbers and even the figures that we aspire to achieve by the year 2030 have actually been put in the vision. But then looking at what happened, for example, in the first quarter, the 4 years that Jubilee has been actually been to power, and looking at how insecurities or perceived insecurities almost derailed and destabilized the entire sector. These are what I'm referring to, software issues that actually needs to be captured very elaborately in any manifesto, so that we can actually be able to relate with. But really, looking at what was put forward, all these things are tenable, really, but as I've already mentioned, is the software aspects that are missing. We are happy with the proposal to work with investors and be able to promote investments. But then we also want to look at what the government is doing towards their government-owned tourism facilities in the region, for example. We are happy when we talk about medical tourism, but we'd also like to know what is being done to be able to promote and allow people within the country to be able to travel and sample and enjoy these facilities. Because if the local people can actually are not actually empowered to be able to get benefit or enjoy these touristic products that are being fronted, then it is very difficult for a foreigner to be able to come and enjoy them. So those are the software issues that I'm referring, and we are not able to see or touch them within the manifestos that are being launched by the political parties.
But some one of my panelists, Bwana Johnson Kivaka, described this promise by Jubilee as probably one of those where Jubilee under-promised. Do you feel excited by this promise, especially with regard to the tourism sector? Do you feel that Jubilee is pushing itself to do something big, to go out big enough in the tourism sector, or is it just one of those lackluster promises?
Actually, hit it on. If you take particularly in the region where 65% the Jubilee administration through the investor, and particularly on the lines in tourism, have actually under-promised or under-quoted what can actually be achieved. Because if you look at the potential of the tourism industry, and particularly in the coast region only, not to mention the developing and emerging areas, Naivasha, Central, and even the bed nets that we are seeing being added to Nairobi. Actually, the potential is very high. And we really don't have to talk about low cost or accessibility of air and everything, because marketing has actually failed us big time. But then we have online platform, and you've seen A and N and B and these other online booking platforms that are actually making it easier for people to be able to travel and visit destination. We've seen, for example, in the coast region, an emergency of homestays, and we're seeing a growing component of apartments where we are seeing these attracting a lot of particularly the domestic tourists. So the software aspects actually needed to actually been concentrated on, because we already have very good investment in security, for example, you must say. Very good. The road network and the infrastructure, that investment in structure, that is actually very, very much. Tourism actually, where you have support many other departments. For example, if you fix security, if you fix infrastructure, you fix aspects, agriculture, for example, then this makes it easier for people to be able to travel. For example, for you to be able to grow domestic market, it does a lot how you actually grow the other sectors of the economy. If people have disposable income, for example, and the prices of commodities go down and inflation is managed, then people have a higher disposable income, and they can actually be able to be encouraged to travel. So rather than just putting the figures and numbers, we really wish that the crafters of whatever manifestos, the be it Jubilee or whatever NASA are launching today, would actually be able to concentrate on the software aspects. Look at, for example, the issue of manpower development and training. If you talk about these figures, and looking at the coast region, for example, in itself, we have had a situation where in the last 4 years we have had a lot of a huge exit of professionals because of the seasonality nature of business. As we speak now, many hotels are preparing to open. Malindi and Watamu is still closed because of the seasonality nature of business in this particular destination.
Thank you, sir, for
software issues, and particularly manpower, because tourism. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel Kwaya, Executive Officer, Hotel Keepers Association, Mombasa, giving us the view from a stakeholder's perspective with regard to what the Jubilee Party promises to do in as far as the tourism sector is concerned, and that is contained in the Jubilee Party manifesto launched yesterday. Of course, we do expect to see what NASA will promise in case they get to take over the reins. What their promise in as far as that particular sector is concerned, we await to see that later today. We also do understand that there is something going on at the Harambee House. Later this morning there will be the signing of a collective bargaining agreement between civil servants and the government, who is their employer. Later this morning we'll be heading there. In a short while, our reporter Hassan Mugambi is covering that particular story. Back in studio, we are here with my analyst, and we want to ask this question. Do you think that this is a perfect opportunity for either side of the political divide, and I'm talking about Jubilee and NASA, to actually craft their campaign messages around the manifestos? As you mentioned correctly, they've already been on the campaign trail, but they seem to be struggling and scrambling for a particular question to hold on to. Is it the UNGA issue? Was it the ICC? Is it issues to do with IEBC and delivering on the promise of a credible election? What is a galvanizing question to these campaigns, and will we get that from this launch of the party manifestos 42 days to the elections? Bwana Brian. Yeah,
thank you, Fred. I think the launch of the manifesto was just an opportunity, was just a ceremony, because if you would have been listening carefully to what both sides were saying before in terms of their campaigns, they've been still talking about what was actually deliberated upon during the launch. So this was just a ceremony now to actually officially launch the manifesto. But if you listen, they've been talking about issues of wealth creation, job creation. They have been talking about security. They have been talking about development in general, and therefore this just culminated as just a ceremony now, just to do that officially. But again, I also want to say that NASA has the advantage of now picking the gaps that perhaps they do perceive, where seen in the Jubilee manifesto, and perhaps try to galvanize their document and make it more robust, make it look more attractive. Because actually politics is about competition, and you normally look in a manner to suggest that your opponent is weaker, and try to take advantage of that vacuum or that gap. And therefore NASA perhaps might come up with something more solid, more robust, more attractive and all that, to ensure that they have a competitive edge over Jubilee, because they had the advantage of Jubilee going fast. But again,
but Michael, again, do you agree that by launching the party manifesto last after Jubilee has done their own, that NASA now do stand a better chance of actually crafting their messaging for the party manifesto in a better way, that they have the advantage now in as far as messaging of the party manifesto is concerned?
I partially agree with that ideology, that they might be having a better way of looking at what their opponent is having and saying, how do we ensure that we make this in a perfect way? How do we ensure that we override on what they already have and give it a better look? But again, when you look at it critically, you're looking at a manifesto that perhaps has been discussed by the party members, perhaps has already been printed. I mean, there's a difference of about 24 hours here. So if you want to change something, you might change it, but it might not necessarily be in the book that you call manifesto in that case. And so you may say that, well, NASA aside as a launch today, that they will be looking deeply, and I can tell you they'll be responding very critically on some of the issues that Jubilee put out to the public there yesterday. And they will be looking at issues, for example, of internship program that perhaps were talked about, which is relatively new. They will be looking at issues of job creation that Jubilee has been talking about. But remember, when they talk about job creation, they'll be having statistics, they'll be having facts, and they'll be saying, look, Jubilee has not been able to deliver on this. How come they want to deliver in the next 5 years?
But do you think that's how they should go about it? That they should spend so much time trying to say what Jubilee has or hasn't done, or what Jubilee said they will do, and the Jubilee manifesto, or just go out ahead and talk about what they intend to do?
That is what is supposed to be. This campaign is supposed to be won on issues and not on personalities. Unfortunately, what we've been seeing is personalities and not issues. And so as they come to a point of launching their manifesto at the same time, and I agree with my brother here, I mean, why weren't this manifesto launched 3 months ago, so that people will be able to interrogate them during the campaign tours that they've been having? It is very, very critical that you launch something in a timely manner so that people are able to go through it. I can tell you, we do not want as a country to go into a situation where people will say, so-and-so has read it for us, now we will just vote. We really don't have time to read it, because it is
nobody has time to read it.
There's a lot of time.
The Jubilee document is 76 pages long. I'm sure NASA are going to come up with a similar voluminous document. Do we even have time to go through all this? And it's heavy on statistics, on numbers, percentages and all this. Do you think the Kenyan electorate is really ready to go through a 76-page document and another probably 75-page document before they make a decision on who to elect come August?
Fred, the 72-page document, and I want to believe NASA's document will have a similar pages, is not meant for Wajiko. This is for you and me, who are armchair critics, to look through it.
It is good fodder for media to crunch and ask questions to panelists.
For the newspapers, they can even get some adverts for the parties to serialize them. Manifestos, Fred, are essentially living documents for serious political parties. They are like the Bible, the Quran. They are not launched when an election is around the corner. What is launched when election around the corner is what you call campaign platforms, right? Which is basically what you call the action points derived from the manifestos. So anytime you hear a party saying they are going to launch their manifesto at the election time, then frankly, you already have the wrong end of the stick. Because manifestos are inspirational, they are emotive, they are visionary, right? What we are getting from Jubilee yesterday was essentially what you call deliverables.
Yes.
Now those deliverables are supposed to then translate into that vision, that picture of the society we want to have. Now that is something I think which cannot be crafted just when the elections are around the corner. It requires continuous interrogation.
Yes.
It requires continuous engagement with Wajiku. So for the purpose of this discourse, and I'm sure it has basically attracted a lot of media, these are not manifestos. These are statements of intentions. These are shopping lists. So if we expect, for instance, to have something different from our colleague, the NASA, different from Jubilee, I think we'll be actually wishing that will happen.
Do you think, for example, that Jubilee used the opportunity perfectly yesterday to come up with a proper rallying call to their supporters, or do you think just the whole process of launching this heavy document was just that, a formality?
I think what they did yesterday, friend, was essentially to formalize what they've actually been telling people over the last 2 months. They've been talking about job creation, they've been talking about food security, they've been talking about infrastructure. That's what we have seen from the 3 pillars, right?
Absolutely.
And what we're hearing in their campaign trail, like they're in Tharaka Nithi now, whether they're launching a bridge that fits India, infrastructure, whatever. Now, what I suspect you're going to hear from other people who are launching their manifesto this evening is essentially how they can do it better.
Yes.
Right? But one of the things I think, if, for instance, you want to actually find out whether these people have a vision for this country, nobody has addressed the issues of foreign policy. Nobody. And that is critical. In a world that basically we talk about that,
but we're yet to see the NASA manifesto.
Yeah, we're yet to see that. I think, Fred, what I can say is that it will be unfair for my colleague to say that the timing of the launches of the manifesto was not really in order. I want to tell him that we have to appreciate as a country, and from the fact that we are smarting out from nomination process, the issues of parties putting their houses in order, and so on and so on. There's no party which had a fair start in terms of having put its house in order from.
But is it fair to the electorate that 42 days to the election, this is when we're giving them voluminous documents laden with statistics for them to internalize?
I think,
it's fair on the electorate?
Owing to the circumstances, of course, I think we have to bear with it as of now. But essentially, it would have actually come at a better time, or initially it would have come at a time when people have enough time to interrogate this document further, and so on and so on, punch some holes and so on. But again, as far as the circumstances behind why the timing was done at this particular time, I think we have to give it to them because of those.
Because the question is, Brian Mutier, do you think the launch of these manifestos today is going to sway anyone?
No, absolutely no. I do not think so, Fred, because I've said here before that politics in Kenya, in terms of voting patterns, coalesce along personalities and ethnic backlines and all that. And therefore, our manifesto is just a ceremonial event, just to show, for a party to showcase that they are just towing the line in terms of the formal affairs and arrangements of any political party. But when it comes to essentially the issues that perhaps people would want to hear, they would hear so much good sugar-coated issues, big promises and all that. But at the end of the day, when they start, tickling at the polling stations in terms of those queues to vote, you'll be surprised nobody will be remembering that Jubilee promised me this, NASA promised me this, and I'm going to vote for them. No, they'll still be coalescing alongside the ethnic-based, politics in terms of voting patterns that we have been able to witness as a country. And therefore, the onus still remains on how, political parties are going to gain more by making more inroads at areas which are perceived to be opponent strongholds. For instance, right now, you can see, Jubilee is actually going to galvanize or solidify the NASA bloc, the Nithi, which is actually traditionally known to vote, for Jubilee. And therefore, they are just going there to make sure that they uproot whatever was planted by NASA the other day. Because you could see, if you could remember, Kalonzo went there and told them, I'm a Nithian, I'm a Tharaka Nithian by nationality or by birth, and therefore I'm one of yours.
And we expect something similar when NASA comes to launch its manifesto later this evening, that they just will be seeking to undo what has been done by Jubilee yesterday?
Absolutely. That's what we're likely to see, because, as I said before...
And don't you think by doing that they'll have missed a proper opportunity to actually sell themselves and probably come up with a proper rallying call for the electorate?
And in fact, they will be enriching their document. They'll be actually looking for what could have been left out by Jubilee and what is it that we can pick out as an issue that we can run away with. For instance, I will tell you, Fred, yesterday you could hear that Jubilee said that they are going to fund secondary education, especially the day component, not the boarding component. What NASA is likely to come up with is universal basic education for secondary education. That way they'll be able to beat Jubilee hands down on that. And therefore, it's a matter of packaging your message in a way that you endear yourself, you make yourself more attractive to the people in a manner that they are going to fall for you. And therefore, that's what NASA is likely to capitalize on.
Even as we continue this conversation, you can see live pictures there from outside Harambee House in Nairobi, where we do expect any minute now the signing of a CBA between civil servants and the government, collective bargaining agreement. You can see government officials as well as representatives of civil servants already there awaiting that signing. Of course, we'll be heading there in a short while once that ceremony kicks off. Gentlemen, Bwana Michael Lagwanda, we want to finish up this issue, the party manifestos, and now discuss the other issues about political campaigns and what is happening on the political on the campaign trail. But do you think, what would you advise NASA now that Jubilee has done its bit? NASA still has 2, 3, 4 hours to go before they launch their own document. What would you advise NASA, even in terms of messaging, if at all they had hired you to advise them? What would you tell them to do?
First of all, Fred, I want to say this. We have a big issue with political parties in this country. They are not parties that are based on philosophical beliefs and ideological beliefs. They are parties that are looking at what we have in Vision 2030 and want to implement it now and or tomorrow, but they do not tell us how fast, and economic issues that surround those issues. Coming to your question, if I was to advise NASA today on what to tell the country, I'll be very careful not to read the entire, for example, I'm just talking about 62 pages or 72 pages or 82 pages. I will be careful to give the country about 5 things that I want to deliver to them. The problem that Jubilee is facing today is they overpromised and they never delivered, and that is why Jubilee is finding it very hard to be believed to be a party that is able to deliver on some of the promises that they're giving out. I will stick on few issues and delve on them seriously to a point where we can let the public and the voters, the electorates, be able to identify with those 5 key areas and say these are the things that we will do. But if we want to go in a way where basically we're saying we'll be able to do everything that Jubilee has said and we will also even be able to do it better, you know, let me give you an example. When you're talking about issues of tourism in this country, and then you have a road in Narok that goes to Masai Mara that has not been paved for years and years. I mean, I bring so many Americans into this country through our organization, and the only thing that we keep on crying about is the bad road between Narok to Masai Mara, and you say we want to increase this twofold and you've not worked on those logistics, then you're cheating yourself. I mean, I want definitely NASA to look at what they have, narrow it down to about 5 points, hammer it to a point where people are saying we now know it, now we will vote for you. But if you give us 20 or 30 things you want to do and you're not able to do 5 like the study and say, oh, we have 9 now, but we've not even delivered 1, then we'll be cheating ourselves.
I'll give you the panelists an opportunity to respond to that, but for now let's cross over to Harambee House, where that ceremony for the signing of the CBA agreement between civil servants and the government has just kicked off. Let's listen in.
Presence to be with us. May you guide us and lead us in all that we will do, because this is our humble prayer through Jesus Christ our Savior. At this moment, I'll invite the chair to the negotiating committee so that he can tell us how they have gone about it and what they have been able to do. Dr. Mono.
Thank you very much, Grace. the CS, my brother Tom Odege, Union of Kenya Civil Servants, Secretary General, colleagues in the civil service, the Fourth Estate, good morning. It's a great pleasure for us to be here today to witness the signing ceremony of the collective bargaining agreement between the Union of Kenya Civil Servants and the government of the Republic of Kenya. The signing is coming at a very important moment in the lives of the civil servants of Kenya, and also in the lives of Kenyans in general. As you are aware, negotiations is normally not a very easy task because it constitutes a major labor offensive. But I must congratulate the parties to this collective bargaining agreement for the spirit of give and take that they exhibited during the entire period of negotiations, and also for upholding the principles of trade-offs and give and take. I also want to appreciate the entire team for the kind of dialogue that they showed during the negotiation process. Particularly, I am very happy because we are coming to this signing ceremony without much acrimony, as has been witnessed in other sectors. What we are going to sign today is actually going to impact on the lives of quite a number of civil servants and their families. Because when you talk about the life of a worker, then within that you must include the welfare from the sweat of that particular worker. We also know that what we are having today is going to improve the livelihoods of our members who are the civil servants, and also we expect that the workers within the civil service are also going to realize improvement in their levels of productivity, because that is the most important thing for our country. As a country, we need to be competitive, and labor is one of the key factors of production, and therefore, if you improve on the welfare of a worker, and this one gives the ripple effects in terms of improving productivity of the civil service, the public service, and of course, linking with the private sector, then we expect that as a country, we shall realize a great achievement in terms of our competitiveness. I want to stop at that level. And I want to urge the colleagues, especially the two parties, that signing a collective bargaining agreement is just one step. The most important step comes in terms of ensuring effective implementation of that collective bargaining agreement. And the second important step is continuous monitoring of the implementation of the CBA and ensuring that you monitor the kind of improvements in the welfare that is coming as a result of that particular CBA, and improvement in the productivity levels of the workers, so that it can also inform the continuous dialogue between us as we move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Molo. It is now my pleasure to call the Secretary General, the Union of Kenya Civil Servants, Mr. Odege.
Thank you very much, Madam Grace. Our CS of the CLC, Dr. Jacob Omolo, government officials present, union members and union officials present, good afternoon. Allow me to take this opportunity, first and foremost, to thank the government for having allowed this opportunity for us today to sign the long-awaited CBA. Those who have been with us in this process, you are aware the last CBA we signed was in 2012. and now we are in 2017, signing our second CBA. When I tried to look behind and check on the records in the union, I want to believe this is the second CBA being signed in the civil service. And in the public service, I think we are the only union which is today signing the second CBA. I know there are a number of expectations from our members, but they'll bear with us that we have made one important step to ensure that whatever is promised or given to them is protected in an agreement which we are going to sign here today alongside the government of Kenya. The items of the CBA, I don't want to dwell much on them because the CS will try to capture most of them, but I want to talk about some 2 to 3 issues which I want our members to get into consideration. The fact that the CBA will be a 4-year CBA will not stop us from engaging the government on other non-monetary issues. Like currently, you are all aware, in the public service, we have a medical scheme which is being implemented by NHIF, and we are in the process of introducing post-retirement scheme within that scheme, because we realized all our members need more medical attention during retirement than when they are in the service. And I want to ask the government on this one, that as much as we are willing to convince our members also to contribute on this, we want to request the government to show it as a very important gesture to your outgoing members to get a well-oiled medical scheme when they are going home. I mean treasuries would chip in something so that we challenges which this CBA might disparity in remuneration. Because when you look at the public service, we have 4 key departments in the public service, where we have the Public Service Commission, we have the Teacher Service Commission, we have Parliamentary Service Commission and the Judiciary. Of all the 4 commissions, it is the public service which used to trail when it comes to earning. And I want to assure civil servants that we are here for them. We'll try our level best to shorten the period of harmonizing pay in the public service, so that if you are working in Parliament or you are working in the Public Service Commission or Teacher Service Commission or in the Judiciary, you are all treated equal as employees of the government of Kenya. There are a number of promises we have made to our members and a number of negotiations we have done outside the CBA. Like when we introduced this scheme, we agreed there was need for portability of this scheme, where we were supposed to introduce the biometrics to allow our members to be treated in each and every facility they find themselves sick. But there is a very big delay where the CS, we expect you to step in, because we are seeing a lot of laxity on the side of NHIF. We give money, we accept the best from that money. Okay, this is ours, that's theirs. Lastly, allow me to talk about pensions. Okay. Okay, I think there allow me to say something about pensions. We met with the government in the year 2012 and agreed to introduce a contributory pension scheme in the public service. We have seen a delay, even though this year the Treasury has indicated the intention of doing it, but we need this scheme to be realized. We have realized that when our members are leaving the service, we become the most disparate employees outside employment. We need this scheme as early as today, so that we can start planning for our going home.
You've been watching live pictures there from outside the Harambee House, where we do expect any moment now the signing of a collective bargaining agreement between civil servants and the government will take place. There addressing the press was Tom Odege, the Secretary General of the Union of Civil Servants. CS for Public Service, Cecily Kariuki, is also present at that event. We'll be heading back there once that connection is sorted out. We do want to wrap up the discussion here in studio with my panelists. Let me give you a chance, an opportunity to give final comments. Michael Agwanda, Brian Mutie, Johnson Githaka, before we go back to Harambee House. Bwana Githaka, final comments with regard to this issue on party manifestos. What would you advise NASA to do if at all they go ahead and launch their party manifesto this afternoon?
Friend, there are only two issues that basically galvanize the masses, and I'm using the word masses very deliberately. When you basically have a constituency of about millions of people you're addressing, you cannot tell them about stadiums, infrastructure, industries. Only two issues. You have to talk to them about health and security. That is crowd-cutting. That will basically galvanize them. If any of these formations is able to bring some freshness into issues of health, because health, affects everybody, whether you are money or not, that is critical. Security, critical for everybody. Those are areas whereby basically, depending on the packaging, depending on the transformative nature of their message, can gain traction. The rest of the issues, friend, I can tell you, they will not basically be resonating with the person out there. Okay. Issues of industry, for instance, we heard Jubilees talk about, setting up industries in every county. A very good idea. But remember, counties have their own county governments.
Yes.
And we've seen the tug of war between the national government and the county government. Again, the implementation becomes problematic. But if you address issues of security, issues of health, those are issues where you're going to find very little contestation.
Okay.
But if they're not addressed, I'm afraid these manifestos will remain academic pieces of papers that we can debate until you come back.
Thank you, Joseph Githaka. Finally, Brian Mutie, final words, briefly.
Thank you, Fred. I think my colleague has talked about health and security, but I also want to talk about the issue of food security as a very key component that actually drives the masses in terms of packaging. The moment you touch the people in terms of their stomach, I think you are likely to have them on your side. And therefore, I think apart from health and security and the issues of food issues and cost of living, these are major selling points, and they need to be, packaged in a way that they sell to the people. But again, I want to say that NASA has an opportunity. Of course, Jubilee had their day yesterday, and of course we heard what they said. Although they gave a long list of things that they are likely to do for us, I think I do agree with my colleague Agwanda there when he said that they needed to condense the message in a way that it's short and it's hitting very hard, or it's resonating well with the people. And again, how they package their message is going to be an issue today, especially for NASA. If they are able to beat Jubilee in their game, they need to ensure that they package themselves in a way that they are the best, they are the better part of the bargain.
Okay, thank you so much, Bwana Brian Mutie, Bwana Michael Agwanda, and Johnson Githaka, who have been our analysts for this hour. Thank you so much. You've been looking at the Jubilee Party Manifesto, which was launched yesterday, and the expectations that we have with the launch of the NASA Manifesto later today. That has been Citizen Extra. My name is Fred Indimuli. We'll be leaving studio and paving way for the Swahili team to take you through the next hour. I'll see you back at 1 with the Citizen Live at 1. For now, let's go back to Harambee House, where the CBA is being signed between the Civil Servants Union and the Government of Kenya. Good afternoon.
Civil service. The ministry and the union have enjoyed a long-standing working relationship with each other. The CBA reflects our commitment to work together more closely towards a common goal, the pursuit of improved service delivery to the citizens, and focuses on issues concerning 1. Productivity, 2. Positive and ethical working culture, positive aspects. These are top priority items for this government transformation agenda, and we will continue to implement this agenda going forward. I wish to highlight, contained within the new agreement that we are signing this morning, that this agreement takes effect on 1st of July 2017 and will be enforced for 4 years, and is a review of the terms and conditions of service of staff in the job groups A to N. Some highlights here touching on the basic salary is that the basic salary will increase by between 16 and 30% from the effective date. It means the lowest paid public servants in job group A will earn a minimum of 12,192. In housing allowance payable to the employees will be harmonized as per the grades across the regions, across all the regions in the country, and again this will take effect from 1st July of the year 2018. We introduced a health service allowance, we introduced a nursing service allowance, and a risk allowance for veterinary personnel as part of this new CBA. However, the CBA does not lock out further engagement between the parties on matters necessary for improvement of service delivery. SG, that touches on the issues which are pertinent and that you have raised. Issues of pension, we will continue to engage within this 4-year frame. We'll negotiate and agree on issues touching on the operational issues that you raised on discipline to ensure that civil servants are put to good use. Kenya needs all civil servants working. We will be looking at issues of harmonization across the sectors as you have raised. We'll also be looking at the issues of medical cover for the retired civil servants. Indeed, discussions on the last item are well advanced inside of my team and within the ministry itself. So we will continue to engage on those issues. Already, ladies and gentlemen, the government through the National Treasury has allocated a budget of 20 billion shillings to implement the revised basic salary structure for the basic public service following the results of the job evaluation which commences 2017-18 financial year. It is my expectation that the successful implementation of the collective bargaining agreement and its provisions will not only translate into increased productivity by the workers in government, but will also raise staff morale and confidence in the service. On its part, my ministry is committed and will do whatever it can in order to provide successful implementation of this collective bargaining agreement. At this moment, which I wish to view as one that we need to be celebrating, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to all those who, through their dedicated service and efforts, have contributed to a very smooth finalization of this CBA. In particular, I wish to thank the chair, the independent chair of the Central Negotiation Committee, Dr. Molo here, and your whole team, and the role you played in guiding the negotiation within the last year, and for the commitment of the whole team in my office and that of the office of the SG of the Union. Your insights and support have made the signing of this CBA today a reality. And indeed, because you kept the team engaged, we didn't see the need for us to sing. If we did, we'd only go to celebrate. I also wish to extend my gratitude to the Union of Kenya Civil Service for their goodwill, their commitment, their resolve not to walk on the streets as we were managing the negotiation process. As you will, the Constitution allows us to picket, but we chose not to do that. We chose, whenever there was an issue, for you to raise it with me, and we were able to come up with a solution and a way forward as soon as it looked like we were getting into a difficult space. I'm looking forward to this cordial and positive working relationship so that we can achieve better levels of service delivery to the people of this country. I also wish to extend my appreciation to the oversight organization, which include the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, the Public Service Commission, the National Treasury, among others, who were always so keen to listen to the issues that the committee had brought to my attention and address them conclusively. The invaluable advice, their support, ensured that the negotiations have been undertaken with due regard to the rule of law and in compliance to the regulatory standards and procedures meant for collective bargaining processes. I am confident that through our collective efforts, our collective commitment, we will be able to achieve more and be able to continue to develop even stronger cordial industrial relations between the government and the union. The signing of the CBA this morning could not have been done at a better time. I said this ceremony follows right on the heels of the celebration of the United Nations in Africa Public Service Day, which was held on the 23rd of June, and this happens every year, where the theme was to recognize the value and virtue of service by public servants to the community. Indeed, I'm a proud Kenyan today to note that within this celebration held in Kigali last week, and which I officiated as well, Kenya has brought home 2 awards for the innovations that will currently be served to Kenyans in the market. I wish to appreciate the public servants for the role they play in supporting socio-economic growth and development of our nation. As I conclude, let me make a call to Kenyans that in the spirit of our Constitution, which, although provides workers with rights to withhold services or even to strike, the Constitution also gives every person, among other things, the right to the highest attainable standard of health, which includes the right to health care services. The Constitution is clear in its assertion that the sovereignty power belongs to the citizens. And in this regard, I would like to appeal to all the parties involved in the ongoing strike called by the nurses to come to the table to reach an agreement in recognition of the spirit both ways, for those who desire to strike for whatever grievances, but for the Kenyans who deserve to have a quality service. It is my hope that reason will prevail and that they will sit around the table and that they will be back to work and serve the Kenyans who are in so much need of the services. Ladies and gentlemen, as I look forward to another the implementation modality witness signed in the CBA, I look forward to an even deeper collaboration between the union and the parties engaged in implementation of the CBA. And I wish to welcome you to witness the signing, which again leaves me today as the minister responsible, not only happy but full of appreciation for you for making my work that much easier so that we can be able to get out there and serve the Kenyans who are